This is the first in a three-part series on developing strategy, prepared by strategy facilitators TMG. TMG has worked with many organisations over its 20-year history. The diversity on this example list suggests that TMG has built up quite an experience base. So, without further introduction, let's hear about strategy development from Peter Boyce, founder and director of consulting at TMG.
Hello, and thanks for taking the time to view this, the first in a series of 3 short videos. Without any delay, let's get straight to some value. The word strategy is used to describe any action plan that has an intended result. We talk about a personal strategy for getting to work on time. We talk about an economic strategy for a nation. We talk about strategies in business. We talk about strategy for the entire business or strategies for parts of the business. In this short video, we're talking about whole of business, strategy for an enterprise or autonomous business unit. Whole of business strategy explains how and why your chosen course will reliably achieve higher than industry average returns in a sustained and corporately responsible way. Now, note the words reliably, higher than industry average returns, sustained and responsible. An action plan only becomes a strategy when it meets this definition. So, how often does your business change its strategy? Let's use the next slide to explore the question. Should Lexus emphasise value for money instead of prestige during a recession? Should Tupperware or Avon open retail stores to offset slow new sales agent recruitment during times of very high employment? Westfield is creating designer precincts. Should upscale department stores derange designers with shops? BHP Billiton is having trouble finding big acquisitions that win regulatory approval. Should BHP aggregate many small mines instead of using its capital reserves to resource big projects? If the response to each of these situations is to be strategic, it must pass our test of better strategy. Which response most reliably drives toward higher than industry average returns in a sustained and responsible way? We're not going to answer the questions in this short clip, but you can see how the way that we have defined strategy pushes responses to a very high standard of strategic value. How do you get great strategy developed? Begin with a helicopter ride. Lift yourself up above the status quo and look down upon the largest picture you can of your entire industry and as far ahead as you can see. But realistically, who's looking that widely or far ahead? When leadership teams begin strategy development, participants are each on different pages, each thinking about a different mix of short and long-term issues with very different conceptions of strategy. As a result, too often at a strategy meeting or conference, strategy development runs into difficulty. Too many people are underprepared and rely on the conference to bring them up to speed on content. Too many people have not equipped themselves with the kind of input that will be expected of them at a strategy conference. Day-to-day pressures in the lead up to the conference have eroded the time and resources needed to get ready for a meaningful discussion. As a result, short-term issues dominate the headspace and the meeting or conference ends up being productive only by maintaining a strong operational bias where people are most well informed. But to develop strategy, the operational bias needs to be suspended and the focus shifted to driving out strategy. Broadly, the process of strategy development is obvious. To begin, however, broad scoping objectives are needed. If your expectation is for annual incremental growth over the next 3 years, you'll seek out only certain information to inform that. If you want to become one of the major players on a world stage, the task is likely very different. So the broad starting objectives create thought boundaries for what input will be collected for strategy development. Foresight has become much more important as the pace of change accelerates. So today, change must be anticipated and factored into your strategy. Somewhat concurrent is your analysis of the industry, your market and your organisation, using tools you think appropriate. SWOT, 5 forces, Delta, portfolio analysis, product life cycle, business driver analysis. There are many tools. Each contributes something to your understanding. Your goal is to develop insight. Unique insight. Insight your competitors do not have. Now improving your competitive advantages becomes more likely. Now you can start formulating strategy. And again, there are plenty of analytical tools to help, from an Ansoff matrix to Blue Ocean. The tools help you articulate ideas and structure your creativity. Now, as these basic steps are well known, let's not dwell on them, but acknowledge that to do it well requires significant preparation as well as evaluation in arriving at commercially robust options, as well as options that clear the hurdle of being more than an action plan, a strategy as we have defined it. For strategy development to succeed though, you need to leverage the knowledge of internal and external stakeholders. So you need a process that really engages them, and particularly engages those who will have to implement. Fortunately, there are plenty of tools in the toolbox, so let's take a look. Examples include World Cafe or Open Space that harness the insight of big groups, FutureSurf to drive out visions and scenarios, participation triggers and structured experiences to ensure engagement, tools for remote sharing and ways to leverage creativity, and so on. To do all that well is going to require an efficient process. What should you consider? Using this checklist is likely to help you create a strategy development process that will work well for your organisation. Give some thought to allocating enough resources. Consider where the input needs to come from and who's best placed to get it. Consider what special expertise might be needed, who you need to involve, and the processes that will get people not just involved but highly engaged. Finally, as events unfold, the human dynamics of change can create conflict, uncertainty, and impact relationships. You need to consider how those feelings will be acknowledged and yet contained. If strategy rather than operational adjustments are to be achieved, then the process needs to be organised to make that happen. We find this summary checklist very helpful. I hope you do as well. Well, this is the first of 3 clips. The purpose of this one was to give you some help with framing, scoping and developing the strategy task. Hence the time given to the definition and its implications. Our next video will address balancing operational effectiveness demands on your strategy development priority. In it, we'll talk about 4 very different industries as examples, examine how the dual priorities can get out of balance, talk about harnessing innovation, role of acquisition in strategy development, and begin exploring what globalisation means for strategy development. I hope you'll join us for the next video. So, thank you for watching. I hope you found this clip, and indeed you'll find the others in the series, helpful in developing the strategy task.
You've been listening to Peter Boyce, Director of Consulting at TMG. TMG are strategy facilitators offering a range of professional services. A downloadable version of this presentation can be found on the TMG website.